Hey guys, I've been going to put this one out, but I got frustrated earlier dealing with YouTube and trying to get the other video out that I just put out. I uploaded it the first time and it didn't meet the YouTube standards. I don't know how it didn't because there was no vulgarity in it, no bad pictures. So anyways, I spent all the time uploading it. So then I brought it back down, I re-edited it, I tweaked out some things I thought could have been like attacked or words, and then I put it back in. They still failed to let me monetize that video, so it's under review. They're hitting me pretty hard right now. I've noticed also on my subscribers, I'm going from like 19,444, 19,448, and then it'll go right back down to 19,443, 19,445. It has not hit 19,450. It just plays right in there, so pretty weird. Got a story for y'all out of Pennsylvania, Delaware County, 2019. This guy wanted to be anonymous. It's a good story. I thought some people up in Pennsylvania and all y'all might like this story. Says he was having a hard time being around people. I guess he was depressed, kind of having hard times. So he packed all of his belongings. He said he was 30 years old and he went to live into the woods. He said he was scouting the area around Delaware County, which is the suburbs of Philadelphia. He said he had put his camp down and had stayed a couple of nights, and it had rained, and his tent had got soaked with the rain, and there's a creek running through there, and the area was just flooding. It wasn't a good spot. So he decided, all right, I'm going to have to move, my tent, it's what it's looking like I'm going to have to do. So anyways, he finds a spot, and he starts texting his sister to let her know he's okay, and just kind of corresponding. He said they were talking about different things and visiting. He's laying in the tent, it's dark, and he said after they got done talking, he then started reading a book. He said it started getting late, so I got my flashlight out and put on my headlamp. I was still texting my sister on and off at that point until I would fall asleep. Around 1 a.m. I started having a strange feeling. I had a feeling something strange, something was wrong. I had my headlamp on, which was illuminating the whole inside of the tent, so I'm guessing whatever's on the outside is probably seeing him on the inside. If any of y'all have camped, if you have a light on inside a tent, people can see you, so he's probably standing right out there watching him, which is eerie. Anyways, he says he put his headlamp on. Says he had a tiny opening at the top of his tent, which was mesh, so you could actually look out of his tent. He said, as I was reading, I heard something run very loudly toward my tent, right up to the left side of my tent, and then it just stopped. And at this point, he's got something large beside his tent. He's got his light on inside his tent, so whatever's standing there is looking probably right at him. He said it began barking loudly. That was the weird thing. He said it started barking real loud. He said like a dog right in your face about to attack. He said, I shuddered with fear. I was saying to myself, it cannot be a dog. There's no possible way anything got to my tent with the barricades, trip lines, or at least not without making extreme struggles and a lot of noise. He'd put trip lines, barricades, all kinds of traps up to his tent. And whatever this was, it got through all that. Now that kind of brings me back to, I want to talk a little bit about my grannies. We were having the issue that it came back from when my mom was little to when my mom was taking care of my grandma, and that's when I started having all my encounters. But at the point where my mom was taking care of my granny, where she had her stroke, it had came back. Well, me and my cousin had these ideas. Hey, we're going to set some traps and we're going to catch it. So we went outside, and what we done is we ran fishing line across the whole back of the house. It's pitch black back there at night, and we tied them to the old, grandma had the old clothes pin out there, and we tied them to the pipes, and we ran the rope everywhere, and we hung fishing hooks off of it, trot line hooks. We were going to snag this thing up, and we went out, took some boards with nails on it, drove, big old boards with nails on it, and we put them at the windows, where we was hearing it at night time. Then down in the hog pasture, Grandpa had redone some barbed wire. I don't know if you all know, but whenever you're working on a barbed wire fence and you cut the old off, it'll coil up almost like circles. And we took it down in the hog pasture and we rolled it all out down through the weeds and through the little trees that had grew up, the saplings and all. So we was certain that if it came up around that night, we was going to shoot at it, run outside. It always ran, get it to run into this stuff. So sure enough, that night it came back, and whenever it came back, it done the same thing it done every night. And we went outside and it took off as usual, and it never touched the trap either. Grandma used to always say her theory on it was whatever it is watching us during the daytime, so whenever we put the traps out, it knows where they're at. She thought it was probably always watching us. It was always there in the day because around her house was really tall weeds, and there was a hog pasture and just a lot of open hills in this area. You know, rolling hills, large trees and grass. So it could have hit anywhere. And the grass came right up to the back of her fence because Granny and Grandpa had retired and they'd let the pasture grow up and everything. So it could have been right there. But anyways, that was always her thought on it. Sorry, I got to rambling on. Anyways, he said, he texted his sister and told her. She said, maybe it's a dog. I told her no way a dog could have got up there without setting off a trap or tripping a booby trap I'd set. It then disappeared and stopped harassing me. About 10 minutes later, I was frightened. I began to really lay there and wonder, what is this thing? And all the bad thoughts start running through your mind. The what ifs, you know, I'm out here alone. What if it does this? What if it does that? So he says he opens a beer and he dials 911 on his cell phone. Now he doesn't hit send, he just pulls it up on his cell phone. He said, I held it in my hand with my finger on the call button. In case something happened, he could just hit the call button and call 911. He said, after about an hour of nothing happening, I drank my beer. Time passed on, nothing happened. I was too afraid to look out the window, so I just stayed there laying in my tent, covered up, shaking. But I couldn't understand what was going on because I had stayed in these woods before as long as 6 months at a time and nothing had ever happened. Nothing, not even as much as a dog bark. He says, so 3 a.m. arrives. I was still holding the phone in a state of fear, dozing in and out of consciousness. He's tired. Then something grabs me through the tent. It began picking me up and smashing me into the ground. I felt like a rag doll. It kept squeezing me and shaking me as if I was nothing. It felt like a large hand had a hold of me, and it kept squeezing and slamming and thrashing me about. I tried to hit the dial button with my thumb, but it was impossible. This thing was breathing so loud and making noises so sinister that the impression I got was that this time it was going to crawl in and kill me. I felt like this creature was straight from hell, he says. I was afraid at any time I was going to die. After about 7 minutes, it stopped. I hit 911. A female dispatcher answered the phone. I tried explaining to her where I was at. Due to me being in the middle of the pasture, where he's at, out in the field, the forest, she couldn't understand where he was trying to tell her to get to. So he says, I hang up the phone and I start trying to get my sister to answer. His sister didn't answer either. He said, I cowered in my tent till sunrise. I was in extreme pain from the beatdown. Nothing had been disturbed, the traps or anything. Nothing had even been set off. I got up, left my tent and everything, and left the area. Whenever I returned home, the police department and everybody was at my house. They'd set up a command center to start searching for him. His sister was frantic. He said, when I arrived and started telling the police what had happened, and they started taking the report, one of the detectives laid the report down and said to me, we're not going to be taking a fairy tale I got scared in the woods report. At that point, I told him, you're not going to believe what happened. He repeated the phrase and said that he would not take a fairy tale report. Whenever I tried to express my feelings to him, he closed the book and told me to come back tomorrow. Out of frustration, being upset, and embarrassed, I told my sisters the story, and both of us thought it was probably better not to go in because they would have never believed it anyways. So there you go, guys. That's kind of what they do, I guess. I know when I was working, you have reports. You have what they call an incident report, and then they have what they call a call to action report, kind of. And if you show up and there's no violation of law, or you don't feel that there's a violation of law, you don't have to do an incident report. Okay? But if the people are really pushing to get something done, you can give them an action report, which means you were just called to action. You were dispatched there for an action report. They get to fill that out. That goes nowhere. It goes in your own personal file, trash, wherever you want to put it. It's just an action report. So it'll be, it's pretty much your version of the logbook, what the police department logs when they get it dispatched out. It's nothing. But a lot of them do that, and they trick a lot of people into believing they're really filing a report whenever all they're doing is just filing a call to action. So anyways, I wanted to share that with you guys. I thought it was pretty scary, something reaching through a tent, grabbing you. I've thought about that before out in my tent before. When I've heard things, I've thought, man, that's only a small piece of fabric between me and whatever's walking around out there. I would suggest not having a light on in your tent at night. It can see you. But if you're out and about, hey, be careful. Springtime's here. I know we're all going to be out. I'm going to be heading out here pretty soon. Be careful and just keep your head on a swivel. And we'll talk to you guys later.